Hi there, this is Harry and welcome back to our English lessons. Today I'm going to talk to you about the IELTS exams. In particular, we're going to focus on the IELTS speaking task. We focus on a number of parts. There are three particular parts, but I'll come back to that in a moment. Before I go on to that, I want to talk to you about our Easy Peasy English Club. The Easy Peasy English Club is for you guys out there where perhaps you can't afford face-to-face lessons with a specific teacher, or indeed you don't have the time and you want to watch something when you do have time. So the Easy Peasy Club is just for you. For a mere €25 a year, yep, just €25, you get entrance into my club and you get a free lesson, a recorded lesson with me every week. And you get lots of other information as well. And on a monthly basis, we're going to have a draw for some lucky person to win a face-to-face lesson with me free. Okay, so the Easy Peasy Club, a lot of you have joined already, so it's a great way to learn more English. So you'll find details in the link below. Okay, and remember, as always, subscribe to my channel. So let me get back to the topic for today. As I said at the beginning, we're going to talk about IELTS, and in particular, the IELTS speaking test. The IELTS speaking test is broken down into three parts. The first part is very simple. It's usually a sort of a warm-up to get you talking about yourself. And this will be about your family, about your job, about things you're interested in, your neighbours, general things like that. And it's something you can prepare for on your own because you know that that's going to come up. Part 2 and Part 3 are a little bit more specific because you're not going to know what the topic is in advance, and the examiner is going to have a long list of topics that he can pick from, so it's very difficult for you to prepare, but you can practice. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is that one particular topic, and the topic of hobbies, just to tell you how I would approach that in the particular exam, Part 2 and Part 3. So in Part 2, before the examiner starts, he will give you 1 minute to prepare. So it's really important for you to use that 1 minute. And if the topic, as we're talking about today, is hobbies, then you should start writing down words or expressions, phrases, something that reminds you that you want to prompt you how you're going to approach this particular topic. So use that minute quite well. You might be negative about hobbies, that's okay. You might be very positive, that's also okay. But as I always say, it's more important about how you say things rather than what you say. So here's the opportunity for you to use good English, vocabulary, grammar points. Don't speak too slowly, don't speak too quickly, don't mumble, and trying to get some fluency. Okay, so if we're talking about hobbies, what can we talk about? Well, we can compare the modern day with the olden time. So you can use a phrase like, in the olden days. So you can refer to perhaps hobbies that your parents or your grandparents had, if you can remember those. And when you compare them with the modern day, you're able to use things like comparable and superlative adjectives, okay? You can pick on a few particular hobbies that you might know about. For example, stamp collection, coin collecting, playing cards, these type of hobbies which are very common and very popular in days gone by. And there's another expression for you to use, in days gone by. So when you're making the comparisons, make sure your answers are sufficiently long that the examiner will get an idea about what you're talking about. You might talk about modern days when it's very hard to get children in particular to focus on hobbies, either because they have no time or because children find hobbies extremely boring. So when we're talking about the children in modern days, we can talk about children get bored very easily, or children only want to focus on. Okay, so these are expressions that you can use. Children do not tend to have an interest in, okay? There's another expression, tend to have an interest in old-fashioned style hobbies, okay? They want to focus more on games, on playing computer games. They're not interested in the traditional hobbies or those in the traditional sense, okay? So we can use those types of expressions to indicate clearly that we have a control of our English. So when expressing your opinion, make sure you include some words connected, some vocabulary. For example, collection or collecting. Yeah, so there's the word collection, the noun, collecting the the verb. Okay, so you might say something like, well, to me, or in my opinion, a hobby is about collecting, or it's about collections, collecting cards, collecting cars, whatever it might be. It's about something you like to do in your pastime. Okay, so it's a pastime, meaning something you don't do your normal working days. Okay, so talking about activities. Of course, hobbies are not all about children, people who are coming close to retirement. So again, we can use that expression, people coming close to retirement, or people thinking about their retirement, or people who are already in their retirement might like to take up, so here's a phrasal verb you can use, to take up a new hobby to get over those long days of winter, yeah, when they've got nothing to do. Okay, an expression, nothing to do. So they're looking around the house, so they take up knitting, or they take up stamp collection, or they take up dancing in the local community centre. In all of our talks, no matter whether it's about hobbies or anything else, what we want to make sure is that we use variety in our language. So make sure we use verbs that we don't normally use, or that we don't repeat time and time again. So we want to be occupied when we're doing hobbies. People want to occupy their time or spend their time. They don't want to waste their time. Okay, so you can introduce these type of phrases in your conversation as well. And when it comes to part 3, and this is when you've had your 2 or 3 minutes talking directly on the point of hobbies, part 3, the examiner is going to ask you a few questions specifically relating to it, but in more general way. So one of the questions he might ask you is, can hobbies be valuable? Well, the answer to this is, of course they can. If you have been collecting for 20, 30, 40 years, you might have quite a valuable collection, something that is worth money, something that you could sell to some really interested collector. Okay, you might have some collector's pieces. So these are all expressions that you can use. So if you have a very valuable stamp collection with stamps from many different and interesting countries or interesting times, or what they call first editions, so this is an expression that you can use, well then they may be of value to some collector. So when somebody is interested in your collection, they would be interested if it has value. So if it's toys that you're collecting, like old Lego or old model cars, they have to be complete, they have to be in the original box, everything has to be there together, and somebody will be willing to get their hands on it. Okay, so to get their hands on it means to acquire it, to buy it, to take it off your hands for an interesting price. Okay, so we've looked at hobbies, and make sure when you're talking about it in part 2 and part 3 that you're quite specific, that you speak fluently, you use good grammar, you use comparative and superlative adjectives where you can. You have that good fluency, got intonation in your voice, you use a mix of vocabulary, you don't repeat words repeatedly, the same words all of the time. And please don't try and learn these topics by heart, because the examiner will identify that and it's going to be a no-no, and it's going to be negative marking. So if you can follow simple rules, think about your topics, use the time that the examiner gives you, try and speak fluently, not too quickly, not too slowly, and above all, don't mumble, then I'm sure you're going to do very well. Okay, join me again soon.